Hello, and welcome to the City of Coburg's Development Code Update Virtual Public Work Session. My name is Jacob Collister. I'm a planner with the Lane Council of Governments in Eugene. Coburg has been a member of the Lane Council of Governments in LCOG. Myself included, have a long history of providing planning and legal services to Coburg. I'll explain our involvement in the Coburg Development Code Update later in this presentation. The Virtual Planning Work Session serves as an alternative to attendance at the Coburg Development Code Update Community Meeting, which is planned for May 22nd, Monday, May 22nd, at Coburg City Hall from 7 to 9 p.m. The content, questions, and materials of this public work session will match those of the community meeting. The purpose of the virtual public work session is to provide an alternative for participation to those who cannot or choose not to attend the community meeting. Before I go further, I want to provide some context for the code development project. So here you see the city's special projects page. This is a good opportunity to introduce you to the project website, which you should take the opportunity to check out if you're curious. Development Code Update. But you also notice that the Development Code Update is just one of many projects occurring in Coburg. And although it relates to several of these other projects, it's really important to note the distinction. For example, the city is undertaking a community visioning project currently as well. And while the issues that surround development relate to visioning and vice versa, and we have been working with those visioning contractors who are working with the city, the projects are separate, and the code update cannot contemplate or address all of the issues that are being considered in that visioning process. So we want to make a clear distinction there. That feedback is welcome, but as far as what we can do with that feedback, it has its limitations. The opportunity the city is pursuing right now for its code update is actually made available through a grant from the Code Assistance Program of Oregon's Transportation and Growth Management Program, or TGM as we know it. TGM is a joint effort by the Oregon Department of Transportation and the Oregon Department of Land Conservation and Development. TGM's mission is as follows. We support community efforts to expand transportation choices. By linking land use and transportation planning, TGM works in partnership with local governments to create vibrant, livable places in which people can walk, bike, take transit, or drive where they want to go. TGM Code Assistance objectives are stated as follows: to promote a transportation system and development pattern that results in a balanced, multimodal system that enhances opportunities for people to walk, bike, and use transit. Increase the convenience or availability of alternative modes of transportation. Provide alternatives to or delay the need for major transportation improvements. And provide alternatives to or delay the need for expansion of an urban growth boundary. Also relevant are 5 principles of smart development as outlined in the state's Smart Development Code Handbook. These 5 principles of smart development include efficient use of land and energy resources. This encourages more compact development patterns. It shortens trips, lessening dependence on the automobile, reducing levels of energy consumption and air pollution. The full utilization of urban services. Smart development means creating neighborhoods where more people will use existing services like water lines and sewers, roads, emergency services, and schools. It also means careful street sizing, to make sure that streets are sized appropriately for their use. So lower density areas have little through traffic and are best served by slower, narrower streets, while transportation corridors that move district-wide traffic need wider travel ways. Mixes of uses. Locating stores, offices, residence, schools, and recreation spaces within walking distance of each other in compact neighborhoods with pedestrian-oriented streets. By doing this, we promote independence of movement, especially for young and elderly. We promote safety in commercial areas, reduction in auto use, especially for those shorter trips, It also promotes a variety of housing choices. Transportation options. By creating more transportation options, we encourage walking, cycling, and transit as viable alternatives to driving. We lessen traffic congestion and air pollution. By providing alternative routes, we disperse traffic, and where possible, lowering traffic speeds makes the environment safer. Finally, detailed human-scaled design. In general, smart design considers the role of pedestrians along with that of vehicular traffic. So trying to emphasize the quality of the walking environment, trying to design streets that are balanced for both vehicles and pedestrians, cyclists, and motorists, and promoting this sense of community. A more detailed description of the 5 principles of smart development is included as an attachment to this virtual public work session. About a year ago, the city of Coburg identified the need to address some long-standing issues related to its code, and identified TGM as an opportunity for making that work possible. Working with LCOG, the city requested TGM code assistance, and after showing a compatibility of its needs, issues, and plans with TGM's mission and objectives, the city was awarded approximately $50,000 for support in conducting this effort. The schedule is as follows. In December, we had kickoff meetings where we got together with the TGM staff, city staff, and LCOG staff, and outlined a path forward, a work scope, schedule, and essentially the way forward. In March of 2017, we developed an evaluation of Coburg's existing regulations. Part of that was stakeholder interviews. We've had a work session with the Planning Commission, and we developed an evaluation memorandum. The evaluation memorandum is something we'll discuss further in this presentation. It's also attached as an attachment in this work session, the virtual work session application. We're currently in the process of drafting the code, so we'll be presenting information that's available in this virtual public work session, and will be presented at the May 22nd meeting, which is draft concepts for code updates. And they emerged from the work sessions, and they emerged from, and will be informed by these meetings and other outreach. Our hope is that in August, by the end of the summer, hopefully no later than fall, we'll be able to have final amendments developed and have a new code adopted by the Coburg City Council. There's a more detailed schedule attached to the virtual virtual public work session application. One of the links takes you to a more detailed schedule that shows things in a little more detail as far as the work products and their deadlines are concerned. So I wanted to provide a little bit of context. Some of you may be more familiar than others, but to introduce you to the regulatory framework of Coburg, and it's identical to that of all Oregon cities, at its core at least. Communities have a comprehensive plan which provides policies, has an inventory of infrastructure and inventory of other local elements. It lays out goals and policies for the city. It lays out a comprehensive plan map that shows plan designations for intended uses of the city's land. It also includes refinement functional plans. This would be things like a parks master plan or a transportation system plan or a wastewater management plan. And all of these provide policy and direction for the city and for these other regulatory documents. So the zoning ordinance is what is often exists in a community, defines what zones the city has, the uses that are permitted, that are permitted either outright or conditionally or prohibited, standards for development, protocols, procedures, methods for enforcement, a zoning map, and a land division component often. In Coburg, which is not uncommon, there's a subdivision ordinance which lays out the provisions for land division, for public improvement standards and definitions. Coburg's land division ordinance is a bit of a vestige, and one of the things that we're proposing to do, or was laid out in our work scope, is to fold that subdivision ordinance into the development code, into a nice clean package of all of these development elements to make sure there isn't redundancy or confusing contradictions. And then other ordinances that there may be, either amendments that have occurred since the original adoption or other special ordinances. All of that is traditionally referred to as the development code. And so when we refer to the development code, that's what we're talking about. For our process, there are two key deliverables at this point. The Community Outreach and Engagement Plan and the Coburg Development Code Update Evaluation Memorandum. The Community Outreach and Engagement Plan outlines steps that the project team will take to engage and reach out to the community. That includes this virtual public work session and the community meeting, but it also includes project site updates, social media approaches, and any other strategies other strategies for reaching often marginalized residents. The purpose of the Coburg Development Code Update Evaluation Memorandum is to outline the development code issues that the city scoped for this project and to provide important context for those issues. In a way, it's a conversation starter. It's something that we shared with our stakeholder interviewees. It's something that LCOG staff provided to the city and worked through with TGM and the city to try to lay out sort of a survey of the code issues in Coburg, and becomes an opportunity to continue that conversation. And so it could serve that same purpose for a resident or any other stakeholders. We'll review some of its content more specifically, but first I want to review one of our other key steps, which was the stakeholder interviews. The stakeholder interviews were held between February 21st and February 28th at Coburg City Hall, included one-on-one and group discussions. There were 6 different sessions, and we talked to 10 stakeholders total, and they represented real estate professionals, Parks Committee members, Heritage Committee members, developers. There was an architect and some home builders. There were property owners, former Planning Commission and City Council members, and representatives representing business, including the Chamber of Commerce. 8 out of the 10 stakeholders were residents of Coburg. And again, that information helped inform our technical memorandum. The scoped updates, these are the issues that were outlined by the city as we worked through and framed the project up with TGM. And these are issues that we will address going forward to some degree. Number 1, adjusted residential lot sizes, lot coverage, and setbacks to improve land use efficiency. Looking at multimodal design standards for the light industrial and highway commercial districts. Looking at standards for mixed-use development. Looking at standards for various space-efficient housing types, including micro-housing, co-housing, cottage clusters, and accessory dwelling units. Design standards for commercial condominiums, which is kind of a new, unique land use. Standards for mobile food vending and temporary structures for special events. Bike parking design standards. Reviewing minimum parking requirements for reduction potential in all zones. So looking at reducing parking requirements potentially. Incorporation of the transportation demand strategies, ways to reduce our reliance on vehicles. Codification of the Coburg Loop Implementation Plan, which was adopted in 2009. including design standards and provisions to require path construction by new adjacent development. This is code that's already been written but needs to be incorporated and implemented. Standards for bicycle boulevards, codification of relevant elements of the transportation system. Standards for complete street design, road spacing and driveway standards and spacing. Incorporation of the IAMP and transportation system plan standards where applicable. The IAMP, that's an acronym for the interchange, the project that was undertaken by ODOT to look at the interchange with I-5 there. Right-of-way use, design, and maintenance standards, including street trees and transit stops. A unified development ordinance incorporating and reconciling with Coburg's subdivision ordinance. Improved definitions as identified by staff and LCOG's review of the code. Graphics to help people understand zoning code concepts and design standards. Hyperlinked table of contents and index and cross-reference for user friendliness and ease of use. And finally, an evaluation of a campus industrial designation to determine if the zoning district is needed. It's a district that exists, and there's a need to further evaluate its relevance. Some of the user friendliness pieces I wanted to give an example of this. There's some code that utilizes narrative to a fault. Instances where, for example, the description of how to define an irregular lot can be very onerous both to write and to understand. In those instances, one of the graphic solutions that can provide a real solution to that issue is to simply present a visual representation of what the intent is. So in this instance, you can see how the irregular lot definition, which could be very difficult to describe in a paragraph, can be fairly easily explained with a graphic. We'll be relying upon TGM's, the State of Oregon's model code for small cities. The model code has gone through numerous iterations and has been vetted significantly, and is an excellent touchstone for code for small cities. And it's something that we reference throughout the code. Again, Monday, May 22nd is our open house. You may be seeing this after that date. You may be seeing it before, but you're certainly welcome to attend. This virtual work session is intended to be a substitute for that. As you review the content on this virtual work session, there's a list of links and a list of documents. And the way that we've set this up is that it's a survey with about 12 questions. Those 12 questions help inform some key issues. It doesn't touch on every issue, but it addresses the key issues that we felt we needed key information, key feedback on. So completing those questions is an important way to participate in this work session. There are links and resources that are attached to the work session that help inform your participation. This is something that we'd encourage you to review. Give yourself some time to make some insightful feedback based on the information that we've provided, and obviously your information, the anecdotal information that you have as a resident of Coburg. We'll be touching on a few key points. This is an example of something that you'll see attached to that document. We'll also be providing some visual information that can help give you some context for answering some of these questions. This example is looking at changing the minimum lot size for residential lots. This is an example of something that you would see and have an opportunity to respond. Finally, we want to thank you genuinely for participating in the virtual public work session. It's only through the feedback from residents and stakeholders that we can really feel confident that we're getting close to addressing Coburg's underlying code development needs. This is something that we're hoping to continue to bring back to the community. There will be a public work session, both a physical work session and a virtual work session that will happen sometime in the summer as we come back with feedback. We appreciate your participation and watch the website for continued updates. Thank you.